Today's presentation is on incident investigation. So we kind of had a theme going on today. The first safety moment webinar, which is really focused on the frontline folks out there, was on accident. Now what? What do I do if I'm involved in an incident? What are the steps that I take? One, to make sure I'm safe and get the care that I need, but two, the paperwork side of things. What do I have to do to ensure I'm doing all of the necessary steps if I'm involved in an incident? Well, that's an important subject to talk about, and we're going to dive in just a second. But right now, I want to run a poll and just kind of take the temperature of the group here and see how you are. How you're handling incident investigation in your organization. So if you take a second and just click on that poll, first question, does your organization have a process for reviewing accidents or incidents? Is yours updating live, Mike? I'm not seeing any numbers changing on that.
I'm not seeing any numbers change either.
Maybe people are just not feeling participatory today.
Yeah.
When is your organization's accident or incident review process activated? I'm thinking that maybe that's not working. The third question is who does your incident investigation? Hey, all right. Who does your incident investigation at your organization? And the fourth question, what is the main purpose of your organization's post-accident procedures? All right. So those are some probing questions there. They're all anonymous, but I appreciate everybody participating, letting us know. All right, we'll let that run for just a little bit more. And we're getting a pretty good group of folks.
Yeah,
sitting there.
80%, 13 out of the
not bad
out of the group. Nice.
All right, we'll let that keep rolling for a second, but I'm going to start on the first question while people are finishing up. Does your organization have a process for reviewing accidents and incidents? And 92% said yes. Wow, that's great. We've got a formal process that we go through to review those things. The second question, let's see. When is your organization's accident incident review process activated? The biggest, let's see, 54% said any incident or near miss. 31% when an injury or damage occurs, and then 8% we don't investigate accidents or only when a serious injury or damage occurs. Okay, interesting. The next one, who does your incident investigation at your organization? 54% say the supervisor, 38% say the safety committee, 8% have an accident review board. I put that one on there because a lot of our counties have a specific organization called the Accident Review Board. The last question, what is the main purpose of your organization's post-accident procedures? 85% to determine the root cause and develop corrective actions to prevent reoccurrence. I hope that's really the case. I appreciate everybody putting that, but the one person that said to make the trust happy, that's okay too. Stop by the trust. We'll get you some M&Ms. We really appreciate you participating in that. Gives us kind of an idea of where to go. We can wrap up that poll, Mike, if you don't mind. Oh, let's see. We should have hit share roles. Let's see. Sorry, I clicked a button. Did that go away now?
It's still sharing. I'll stop sharing now.
Okay, stop sharing there and we'll move on. Okay, that's that kind of gives us a little bit of an idea of where we're coming from and the reason why you're doing your incident investigations. And that was a pretty good poll in my opinion. Here's a quote. I have no idea who said it, but I think it's a pretty important quote. Those who do not learn from their mistakes are bound to repeat them. Do you believe that? All right. Sorry, I had to get some stuff out of the way there. Here's the reason why I believe that, among other things. This is just a snapshot of our workers' compensation claims at the trust, and over a couple of years. The vast majority are sprains and strains, followed closely by slips and falls. Slips and falls cost a lot more than the sprains and strains, about a third more in the cost there. But this rarely ever changes. It's over and over again, and I read every claim that comes into the trust. I get a report every day, and I see every one of those things, and sometimes I roll my eyes because it's the same stuff over and over and over again. And I believe the purpose of incident investigation, which 85% of you said, is we're trying to figure out how to make sure this doesn't happen again. So how can we do better at that so we can knock off a good percentage of these recurring incidents? We don't want to have people get hurt to start with, but it's really bad if we're repeating the same thing over and over again. So that's really what we'll talk about today. Today we'll be talking about the goal, the team, the tools, and the process. What goes into an incident investigation, and how do we make it work? The goal, and this is the world according to Jason, but I believe the goal of incident investigation is to prevent future incidents through learning and corrective action. We analyze and we learn about what happened, and then we take appropriate steps to make sure that the incident doesn't happen again. And those steps could be a number of different things. It could be replacing a piece of equipment. It could be providing a proper personal protective equipment. It could be implementing a policy. It could be replacing the human interaction with an automated system to prevent that exposure to an employee. It could be training. There's a lot of things that can go into those corrective actions, and we'll get to those. But first, I want to do just a couple of definitions. Sometimes there's some confusion. What's the difference between an accident and an incident? And really, there's not a whole lot. Some people don't like the word accident because it implies that there's just a degree of probability to it and randomness that they can just happen. And a lot of people in the safety world will say that's not accurate. Things don't just happen; they're caused. And I can go down that road a certain distance, but I do also realize that there's some probability that comes into those things happening. The meteorite can fall out of the sky and hit you on the head, and there's probably not a whole lot that we can do to prevent that type of an accident. Okay, so an accident is an unplanned, undesired event that results in personal injury or property damage. An incident is an unplanned, undesired event that may adversely affect completion of a task. So what was the difference there? One causes personal injury and property damage. The other is a little broader, that adversely affects completion of a task. I like to call everything an incident, so then we don't get into semantics and arguing. I think all accidents are incidents, but maybe not the opposite direction. What about near misses? So here's another definition here. Incidents where no property was damaged and no personal injury sustained, but where, given a slight shift in time or position, damage and/or injury could easily have occurred. Have you ever had a near miss out on the highway or at an intersection, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was really, really close? I had one. I have to share a story. I was driving home here probably close to a month ago, and I was in northern Davis County where the construction zone is going on. And I was going along. All of a sudden, we'd gone through slow traffic, and then traffic speeded up, and it's going pretty fast. And I'm in the inside lane. I just passed a vehicle, and all of a sudden, the car in front of me, or several cars in front of me, slowed down really fast. I see brake lights, and so I slow down. And I look ahead, the cars in front of me kind of move to the side and they get going. And I look, and this was in one of those construction areas where they have a really narrow emergency lane. So, I mean, literally just a couple of feet, there's a barrier, and then the lane just within a couple of feet. And I look, and there's a man standing in the inside lane of the freeway, and the cars up to this point were going 70 miles per hour. And I look at this guy, and he's standing there with his head moving back and forth, and you can see he's kind of panicked. And I looked to myself and I said, "Oh my gosh, this guy's going to die." And I kept my vehicle stopped, and I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and cars are zooming by in the inside lane, and I'm like, I've got to do something, get this guy in my car or something. And so I started to move my car a little bit to the right to indicate to the other cars, hey, I better move to the side. And some did, and then there was an opening, and this guy ran across three lanes of freeway traffic, high speed, scared the living daylights out of me. I can't imagine what the guy that was there, and I have no idea why he was there. But there was no injury. There was no personal, there was nothing that damaged property or anything like that. This was a near miss that could have easily been a fatal accident. Now, I like to think that I did something to help save this guy's life. He may have played Frogger and got between the cars and been okay. But this was a near miss. And near misses are just as important as the incidents that happen and the accidents, depending on our definition there. The rule is that we need to investigate everything. Why is that? Well, given time and space, that could have been a fatality on the freeway. It could have been a fatality or a serious accident with you at the intersection when that guy ran a red light. It could have been a serious shoulder injury or back injury when you slipped on that liquid out in the shop or in the break room. But I caught myself. There was no incident, there were no injuries, but it was a near miss. And we need to look at those things, because if we look at those near misses, we're really going to get to the root of the issue. If we're only looking at the serious incidents that happen, the property damage incidents, I think we're really missing the iceberg for just the tip that we have there. So, but remember on that, if we're going to be able to investigate everything has to be reported. And so as an organization, we need to have a requirement, a rock solid requirement, that every incident needs to be reported immediately to the supervisor. I had a near miss with a tool. I had a tool break, and boy, it slipped. And if I would have been a little bit different position, it could have been bad. Let's report those types of things immediately to the supervisor. Any accident, any incident that happens should be reported to upper management within 24 hours. So the supervisor knows immediately, and it goes to upper management. Well, why do we want upper management to know about this stuff? They have an obligation to everybody in the organization. And if we're not communicating what those incidents are and what happened, well, we may have identified that there was an incident over here, but if we don't communicate that, if we don't have some accountability there, we can have repeaters, and we can have that near miss become the really serious incident. So have an immediate incident report to the supervisor and a 24-hour reporting requirement. All incidents go to upper management, so they have their thumb on the finger on the pulse, right? You don't use your thumb, of what's going on. Look for the band-aids. And if you've been around here a while, you've heard me tell the Band-Aid story before, but this is one that really impressed on my mind the importance of looking for the Band-Aids. I was working for a company, and it was a manufacturing environment, assembly line. We had an employee get a serious injury, a laceration to his hand, and it cut tendons. When you cut tendons, your hands never work the same again. It's a really serious incident. They have to do surgery. and it was a really bad thing to happen. Well, I went to investigate what had happened in this incident, and to start with, I just stood back to watch the process. Okay, what did they do in this area? How does it, how does the product flow from one place to another? What are the ins and outs that happen there? What are the tools that they're using? And I observed something in this area. I looked around at all the staff, and every one of them had at least one Band-Aid somewhere on their hands or arms. And so I pulled one staff member aside, and I said, "Hey, what's up with the Band-Aid?" "Oh, there's this part that has a sharp burr on it. Didn't get ground down in the manufacturing process, and I got cut." Okay. And so I go to the next staff member that has a Band-Aid, and I say, "Hey, what's up with the Band-Aid?" And they reported the exact same thing. There's this part, it's got a sharp burr on it, and I got cut on it. And I went through every one of those staff members, and guess what? Every one of them had been cut on the same part. Guess what the employee that had a tendons cut in their hand got cut on? It was on that same part. Guess how long it took me to fix the problem? It was the next day. I went, this was a long time ago. I didn't have a cell phone at the time. I walked to an office, and I found a telephone, and I called up the manufacturer that was providing this part and said, "Hey, part number so-and-so has a bad burr on it. That needs to be fixed. We just had somebody get a serious injury from it." They said, "Oh, thanks for letting us know." And the next day we had parts that didn't have that, and we had a process in place to verify that those parts weren't sharp again, and a way to remedy that. Well, the point is, look for the Band-Aids, look for the duct tape, look for those situations where maybe people aren't reporting exactly what's going on. Hopefully we do that, and we have people buy in that it's important to report all of these. But outside of that, let's look for the Band-Aids. Let's look for the duct tape that's covering up the problem that may be the next really bad thing that could happen in our organization. Okay. And folks, if you have questions or comments, please type those into the chat box, and Mike will help me with that, with those questions. Okay. The team. So we're going to investigate our incidents. We get notifications of the supervisor and to management, and then we're going to review those. So we've got to have a team review those. And we had a variety of responses there of how that's done. And there's no set thing that says this is how it works. I will give you some guidelines, though, for who that team should be. But the goal of the team is to engage in the investigation process to ensure that incidents do not repeat. So just going back to our goal, their goal is to look at the incidents and come up with the reasons why it happened and the corrective actions to make sure it doesn't happen again. So who's on that team? The person involved in the incident should be involved with the team for their incident. They know better than anybody what happened in the incident, and they can answer questions that in a better way than maybe the supervisor did. Now we want the supervisor involved because they have a different perspective on things. But the person involved in the incident is the prime witness in this case of what happened. They can tell us exactly what happened, so we want to involve them. Now they may, they may step out of the process as it moves along, but we want to hear from them. How do you think this incident could have been prevented? Ask them that question, and the answers may surprise you. I've been surprised a few times by what they came up with. Sometimes they were very innovative things. Sometimes it was, I just really screwed up. I really messed up on this, and that's the reason. We want to have the supervisor involved. They know the job, they know the area, they know all of those things, and they did a really important step. They did the incident investigation. They gathered the data that we're going to be looking at as a team. Now, beyond those two, The team can be configured various ways. Some of your organizations will use the safety committee. Some have department heads as the accident review board. Some will just have a member of management. My recommendation is that we always have a management level employee as the chair of this group. Why? They have the onus to make sure that things are taken care of appropriately. And they also have the ability to contribute resources, to make decisions. If we come up with a corrective action that needs a new policy, or we need to spend some money to buy a new piece of equipment, they should be involved with this. So they've gone through the process and they see the reason why we're recommending what it is. But there's no fixed format. One thing that I recommend is that you meet regularly. Now, does that mean once a month? Maybe. It depends on the number of incidents that you're having. But I wouldn't put it off to where you have a big list to look at, because we want to take the time to really look into the incident and find that. And the tendency is, if I've got 15 incidents on our list, because we only do this once a quarter or once or twice a year, then we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot. The tendency is we don't want to spend the time to go through those because, hey, we got an hour scheduled for this, and we need to move this meeting along. That shouldn't be our goal. Our goal is to get to the bottom of these things and fix those. So let's keep our agendas short and maybe have more regular meetings for that. All viewpoints are welcome, and that needs to be stated in there, that everybody's opinion counts in here. We don't want people that are in there, necessarily with a negative opinion about the process and all of that. If they're not willing to help out in the investigation, there's probably somebody better for the committee that we're working with. Everybody's goal there should be improvement in the system. Okay. All right. So the tools that we work with, there are multiple tools that can help us in our process. Incident reports, incident investigation forms, review forms. A lot of these things are documents, there's papers. But there are other things, pictures, the policies that govern the behavior or the activity that was going on when the incident happened, the equipment that we're working with, measurement tools, how was it, what was the distance from this to that when this happened, interviews from the people that were injured or people in the area, information from outside, from other sources that use the same type of equipment or had similar issues that happened there. Okay, this is probably one of the most important slides or points of the presentation, and that is that good decisions require good information. As I am looking at an incident in an incident review capacity, as I go around to various different safety committees and incident review boards, and we're reviewing incidents, one of the deficiencies that I see many times is that we don't have all the information necessary to make good decisions. There'll be a simple example. Hey, this person got materials in their eye. They got dirt in their eye doing a job, or a piece of metal in their eye while they were grinding. And a simple question like, were they wearing safety glasses? Were they wearing a face shield? And they may not have that level of information. We need the information to be able to make a decision. And that's frustrating to the members of the committee. It's frustrating to me as I go in and I see something like that. Well, I don't know. And if we don't have the people in the room that have that information, if we haven't done our due diligence to gather that information ahead of time, then we're kind of wasting our time in that room. So let's take the time ahead of that. One, to get the supervisor to do their incident investigation report. Two, do some pre-incident preparation. So we look through and say, what might be the questions that the committee is going to ask? What information might we need to make a good decision about where we go there. And that may mean that I need the policy that guides what we're doing. There's a written procedure on how to do this task. Those are all important steps or pieces of the information that we need. Well, how do you know what you need? Well, we tried to make that easy, and I will send out these documents to everybody. But we have forms, and these are not perfect. They're not they're not going to gather every piece of information that we might need, but they're a pretty good start, and it can help us go down that road. So the first one is the employee first report of injury. This is for a workers' comp incident or an injury. Doesn't have to be workers' comp. I got a cut. I had a near miss that could have caused an injury. You may have a near miss report as well, but it's something like that. I'll also send one out for a property damage, and also send one for an auto incident or auto accident report, we call it. And just on that, if you didn't watch the other two videos or webinars this morning, everybody should have one of these packets in their vehicles that has your insurance information, and it also has that accident report in there, and a pen and a pad of paper, so they can gather that information. So this is really the person that's involved in the incident, their take. And so we get their information, capture who they are and what they were doing when the incident happened, and all the inputs and outputs that they have there. The next document is the supervisor incident investigation. And so when we look at this one, we are handing this to the supervisor and saying, go out and gather the information about the incident that the incident review board is going to need. The supervisor is the best able to be able to gather this information, because they know that they're there. One, they're on scene in most cases, or will be shortly. They know the job that was happening, and they know all the players in most cases, and so they can gather the information there. They also have things, and I know this is probably next to impossible to read on your screen, but some of the things that are in here is how long had this employee, let's see, what shift was it? Was it day, swing, grade, weekend? All those things can be important. Was it a normal shift for the employee? The normal hours worked per week, the hours worked prior to the incident? All of those things can help be determining factors in what goes into our investigation. Where was it? What were the environmental conditions that we had? What was the task? Was it something that we do regularly, or it's something that we've never done before, or somewhere in between? How urgent was the task? Was there a lot of pressure on, we've got to get this done because the power's out in the city, or because the water's out and we've got to hurry and get this stuff on, or it's an emergency and the flood's coming down and so we're rushing to do this or that. Were there written procedures? I'm not going to go through every one of these, but they're all really important questions to ask. The supervisor should be taking the time to go through these things. Is there a risk that the supervisor is going to try to protect their turf and give some information here that would be shed light kindly upon them? Yeah, just the same as the employee may as well. And so we always have to go into that with that in mind, is that the supervisor is going to look upon their work area probably kinder than we maybe should, and we'll probably have to ask some more questions to get to the detail. Now, that's not all the case, not in all the cases. A lot of places we have a great culture and it's very open to, yeah, we had some issues here and here's where I see they are. There is an instant review report. This is for your committee to use. What decisions do we make? Is discipline a part of that? Sometimes, unfortunately, discipline is appropriate. It would be nicer if we didn't ever have to do that, but we put that on this form just so we can help out there. I would prefer that we never had to do disciplinary procedures, but reality steps in, and we realize that sometimes people make intentional decisions, and bad things happen because of it. But that's the form that can help guide you to your decision. Just remember that supervisor is the key person in this chain of events here, and they can really help us make a better decision about the incident and what corrective actions we can put in place. So that supervisor will be gathering information. We hope the employee maybe took some pictures and the information that they gave us in their first report, but really most of what we get is going to come from the supervisor. They're going to take those pictures if there needed to be measurements. All of that stuff should be done by the supervisor. Now, this is something we're going to have to sit down with the supervisors and really train them up and say, here's your responsibility in this situation. You as a supervisor have accountability over your area, and when incidents happen, this is absolutely your responsibility, and to make sure people are safe and to make sure that we get to the bottom of whatever happened so it doesn't happen again. And hopefully this webinar recording would be helpful to you in training your supervisors on that. So may want to think about that. Okay, so the process. What is the process that we do as we review an incident? We get all the information from the supervisor, we get information from the employee, witnesses in the area, and I say the supervisor is leading this. They do. Does that mean that the rest of us are precluded from going out and looking at that? Particularly if we're in management, not at all. You should be out there taking a look, and I think that would be great if you were participating in that. But day to day, the supervisor really bears that responsibility. Okay, so the process. I'll describe the process in this statement. Ask why until it hurts. If you have children, you understand why, right? There's a certain age, I'm trying to remember how old that was, where kids just learn the word why, and they want to know why about Dad, why is this guy blue? Mom, why do you put that in dinner? Mom, why does this happen? And they keep adding these questions and asking, and it gets painful after a while, and sometimes it gets frustrating if you don't keep in mind that, wow, this kid is exploring the world and learning a lot of things. Well, we want to ask ourselves why until it hurts. Why did this happen? Let's take a little angle on this. I believe accidents are caused. They're caused by a couple of things. They're caused by unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. So this is the safety pyramid triangle. And really what it says is that for every major injury or fatality, there's an increasing number of minor injuries and a lot bigger number of near misses, and a whole bunch of unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. Have you gotten away with an unsafe act? Have you gotten away with an unsafe act today? It might be speeding, or I was a little late on the exit on the freeway, and so or maybe you ran through a yellow light at an intersection. Is that an unsafe act? Yeah, I would put that into that category, depending on timing and all of those things. But unsafe acts, they're things that we do. Unsafe conditions would be a hazard, a tool that's broken, a cord cord that has the grounding plug removed. Does that mean you're going to die the first time you use that drill with the grounding plug removed? Nope, you're going to get away with it, and you're going to get away with running yellow lights over and over again. But it's that collection of enough unsafe acts, enough unsafe conditions, and probability tells us something bad's going to happen. So if we can work on those unsafe acts and unsafe conditions to minimize those, we can reduce the chance of having those serious accidents happen. So let's focus on the base of this triangle and try to eliminate those things, eliminate those near misses, and the unsafe acts, and then the big stuff goes away. Or at least we really minimize the probability that it happens. Okay, so here's a question. Here's a statement and a question. All accidents are preventable. Now, some people might want to argue with me about this. Like I told you, I go a long way down this road of saying all accidents are preventable. But I realize that there are some things, the meteorite comes out of the sky and blows up the dinosaurs. Well, that probably wasn't a preventable accident. But the vast majority of those are preventable, and we prevent those by eliminating the unsafe acts and unsafe conditions that can lead to those things. Okay, all right. So we've got our information. We have to review that information and come up with a cause. And in a lot of people's discussion of this, we talk about the root cause. I think there's a root cause, but I think there are many contributing factors. So I wouldn't say that there's one root cause. I could say that there are multiple things that led up to this bad thing happening. And you can think about whatever incident that's most recently befallen somebody at your organization, and you can probably outline multiple failures along the way that led to this incident happening. Not necessarily just one decision or one failed piece of equipment. There's a reason why we got to where we were. Okay, so our job, review all the pertinent information through an analysis process to identify failures in the system and then correct with specific actions. Okay, you can go back and read over that one again and think about it. Now there are, and this is a terrible slide, sorry, there's lots of text on here. There are various different analysis techniques to do incident analysis. I'm going to go on the really simple route, the causal analysis. We could look at the fault tree analysis. If a airplane goes out of the sky, they're probably using a fault tree analysis or an FMEA. Okay, they're just different ways to look at it. I'm going to talk about the asking why, the causal analysis, why. But you can decide how you're going to use the different types with your organization. It comes back to this: ask why till it hurts. What do I mean by ask why till it hurts? Well, one of the things I see in our safety committees or accident review boards that I see many times is it's operator error. It's just easy to say, oh yeah, they messed up on that. When in reality, in most cases, there is a systemic issue, there's a policy issue, there's an organizational issue that probably led to this incident happening. And so if we keep asking why, that's going to help us get to the real cause and the prevention for the next time. Because if we whack the one guy for backing into a car in his pickup that's got a big toolbox on it and has really bad sight lines, and then the next time we have another one with that same type of vehicle and we whack that guy, we're not doing ourselves any favors. It could be that, hey, we bought the wrong toolbox, or we need to provide backup cameras, or we need to provide something that will give our operators better visibility. We also may need to look at training. Hey, if we can avoid backing with this type of equipment, we should always do that. Okay, so let's keep going here. Excuse me. One quick point, operator error usually isn't. Now, people make mistakes. Sometimes they're intentional, and we need to deal with those. But a lot of times, it's something in our system that if we look deep enough, there's an issue there. So let's go through a quick example here. I'm running up on time, so I want to do this quickly, but think about this example. An employee is changing a light ballast, so fluorescent light ballast, and they fall from a ladder after being shocked. So why did that happen? Now, it would be easy to say that was operator error, right? This guy's an idiot. What's he doing? Working with a hot ballast, and not turning the lights off or whatever, locking things out. And we got to ask ourselves a question about that. Number one, I didn't tell you who this employee was. It's an employee. We start asking questions there. Why was this person doing this job? Because we might find out that this person wasn't a maintenance person. They just got sick of having their lights not working, and so they took it upon themselves to change the light ballast out. What if they were a maintenance personnel? Why did they get shocked and fall off the ladder? And so we keep asking why. Well, the electricity was not turned off. Why? And that could take us another direction. Well, the employee turned the power off. He flipped the switch on the lights, but somebody walked into the room when he was in mid repair and flipped the light switch on. Why? Well, because we didn't have a lockout tagout procedure to ensure that somebody else couldn't turn that on. And so we get into a procedure. Well, what if we did have a lockout tagout procedure and that maintenance personnel still decided not to do it? We ask another why question. Well, that person wasn't trained. And then that gives us a corrective action, something we can work on, and we can look systemically. Are there other maintenance personnel that have not been trained on this? If they were trained, then we're going to ask why again. Why would a trained person that has this job and this requirement not do this? Well, there are a lot of different angles that we can go on that. Well, they didn't have a lock. They didn't have the equipment. And that can take us down a road. Maybe they had the equipment, but they chose not to do that. Then we ask a why. Well, what was the reason? Well, maybe they were under time pressure. Maybe their boss said, just fix it, just get it done. Takes too long to do lockout tagout. And that takes us to some real systemic things. It takes us to things about our supervision and our safety culture. Keep asking why until it hurts. If it starts to hurt, it starts to point close to our organization, our systems, and all of those things. We're probably getting close, and we're getting close to something that can fix the underlying problem and prevent things in the future. Whereas if we just say, well, that was dumb, why did you do that? Let's give the employee a write-up for that. If we haven't drilled down deep enough, we're just going to miss it, and we're not going to know what the real cause was. Okay, I had another example here. I'm going to skip that one just for time. Ask yourself all of these questions. Think about the different variables that go into things as you're reviewing these. What was the weather? What was the housekeeping? If somebody slips, trips, or falls, we need to look at the general housekeeping of the area and what is it on an average day. Was this out of the normal, or was it something that is pretty regular out in that area? What was lighting, temperature? All of these things come into play. Was a safe work procedure used? Had conditions changed to make the normal procedure unsafe? Were the appropriate tools and materials available and used? Were safety devices working properly? Did the employee have proper personal protective equipment? Was there a failure in the equipment? Why did the failure happen? Was it a bad design? We used the wrong tool, or was it poorly maintained? Remember, if the more it hurts, the closer we're probably getting to that systemic issue and the thing that's going to work for us. Okay. So in summary, we want to investigate everything. Near misses, incidents, accidents. We want to involve everybody in the process. The people who are involved in the incident have the best information about what really happened. Let's take that and mold that into what the supervisor is able to gather and build a narrative around that and figure out keep asking why until we figure out what the real reason why we had this failure and an incident happen. we've got to be honest and look at ourselves and say, yeah, we can mess up just like anybody else, and we can have deficiencies in our system. But the worst deficiency is if we don't do anything about it. So let's take the time to figure out what those things are, and take appropriate corrective actions. Will the corrective action do what we want it to do? And if we can say yes to that, man, we're really on the track to changing our safety culture and improving our performance to be world class. All right, that is the topic. If you have any questions or comments, please type those into the chat box, and we'd be happy to answer those now. Mike, looks like Jeff's on here as well. Oh, maybe he's just connecting in. Any questions or anything to add?
Nope. This is great. We've just had a couple of folks asking if we would send out samples of those incident investigation documents.
Yeah, I will send those out to everybody who signed up for the webinar. And I'll send that out when I have the link to the YouTube video for this recording of the session. And so it takes a little bit for it to process and upload and all of that. And so when that's done, I will send all of those documents out. And I welcome your questions and comments. I would love to, have a chat with you on the phone, or if you want to, you're having your instant review, bring me in on a Zoom call, something like that. I'm happy to help out on all of those. I know it's hard. This is not an easy process, but it's something that we can definitely all improve on, and I put myself in that category as well. But if we will make a conscious effort when it comes to incident investigation, this can make a major change in our programs, and it can keep our people healthy and safe far better than a lot of other things. So.